I've just finished the Cars trilogy. I think we all should act like the studio and just completely forget that number two has ever existed. Because in number three, there is no mention of the acts that happen in the second film. Some of the main characters, like the spy McMissile, is never mentioned, as well as McMissile's partner, whose name I couldn't remember. Truthfully, I will say that the second one is funnier than I remember. I haven't watched it since it came out maybe over 10 years ago, truthfully, at this point. So it's been quite a while, but I must say it was funnier. However, it still felt pointless overall. It suffers from one of the other films in Finding Dory, where it puts a side character who has comedic relief and is best sprinkled throughout the film and puts them in the main protagonist role with Tow Mater and the spy gimmick. It really doesn't make sense with what the story says before and after in the first and the third. And so I don't think that was a good decision. For me, having, I think it's Paul Newman or John, I think it's Paul Newman, who passed away sadly after the production of Cars 1 in between 1 and 2, the character who voiced Doc Hudson. I remember Mater saying something in the second one, but I couldn't find the exact line that he said. But it's like acknowledged once that he's not there in the film, and then they don't mention it again in the second. And then in the third, they obviously have a full, sort of homage to that character and what he's meant to Lightning McQueen, and he passes on that legacy. For me, if you watch the first Cars and then turn on the third Cars right after, that's probably the best way to enjoy this franchise. When I rewatch all the Pixar films when I have children, I'm going to give it to them like this. Look, the first one is good, very good. It has grown on me more as I've gotten older. 3 is a pretty nice conclusion to a logical continuation of the story, but 2 is literally a waste of time, and we're just going to skip it and go from 1 to 3 if we're not watching in chronological order. But there's Sully. He wants to say hey. But yeah, no. So for me, that is my thoughts. I think Cars 2 is very unnecessary overall. Is it funny at times? Yes. But the main gimmick of it, like I've said before, is that Tow Mater is a spy. And he gets wrapped up into this scheme unintentionally with actual supposed super spies. Let's not get on the mic, Sully. And one of the running bits that they have is that these actual super spies think that Tow Mater is an actual super spy. And they don't really figure it out until deep into the third act. And I'm just like, how? Sully, come on. He really wants attention, it seems. But I'm just like, how can you be a super spy and not figure out sooner that Tow Mater, of all people, is not an actual spy? And I remember one gimmick specifically is so funny. I also think it's very funny that they had Michael Caine voice Finn McMissile. His voice, to me, as I've seen so many movies, really sticks out. I'm like, holy crap, that's Michael Caine. That's Alfred from Batman playing a spy in a Cars movie. In Cars 2. I just wonder how much money they had to pay him to do it after he read the script, but I digress. Anyway, yeah, so there's a bit where Tow Mater is acting like himself. And I think in the second one, he's even more buffoonish, truthfully, than 1 and 3. I think they learned their lesson and turned it back in 3 and just decided to make him more of basically an idiot in the second one. And he does one of his Tow Mater isms, and then Finn McMissile is like, he's so good. Thinking that he's in character. And he's like, that's what you're so good at. They're too busy laughing at the fool that they don't realize that they're being fooled. So, like I said, there's a couple of lines in the film that are probably one of the funniest in the trilogy. But other than it being funny, it doesn't really tie into any of the other events in 1 or 3. Even the racers in that film are forgettable, truthfully, other than Francesco, but he's not mentioned in the third one. I was a little bit uncomfortable with how Sally was so infatuated with Fernando right in front of Lightning McQueen. Let's be loyal and respectful to my boy. But nevertheless, yes, overall I'd give Cars 2 probably an 8.5 out of 10. It's really grown and grown and grown. If you asked me a couple of years ago, I maybe would have said 6 out of 10. And then we'll do Cars 3, or Cars 2 rather, at a 3, 3.5, maybe 4 out of 10 if I'm really feeling generous. And then the last one, I'll probably put it at a 6 or a 7 for me. I think that it takes Lightning McQueen a little bit too long to realize that Cruz, is the logical conclusion. And it did kind of happen fast that we saw Lightning McQueen fade into, irrelevancy on the racetrack pretty quickly. But at the end of the day, it's an animated movie. They gotta fit it, within an hour and 45 minutes at most, right? Probably is what they were asked to do. So they can't lollygag forever and ever. But at the same time, for me, I think Cars 2 is completely unnecessary, and it probably would be best if everyone just acted like the studio and forgot its existence. Rest in peace to Paul Newman. I'm like 80% his name is Paul Newman, 80 to 90%. I really hope it is. If it's not, I'm going to put it over text on this in post. But if you're still watching to this point in the video, I really appreciate it. What are your thoughts on the Cars trilogy? Do you like certain films more than others? And how do you think about the conclusion and the addition of Cars 2 and what it would be like if you just skipped it all entirely? Thank you again for watching to this point. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content from me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and then I'll see you in the next one.